Nelson's comments reminded me, I think it's called the Oxley Act, but about part of which is preservation of financial and other documents. And the Wikipedia page for content addressable stores mentions precisely storing those documents as being one of the applications of a content addressable store, because that allows you to say, the documents for this transaction have these secure hashes. And assuming that record is secure, you can then say, and here is the document that the plaintiff or the defendant or whoever it was signed. Look, it has the same secure hash. And otherwise, the problem is proving that through the passage of time, there was no tampering with the system. That somebody didn't surreptitiously change the 1 to a 3 somewhere in the document. If they do that, they change the secure hash, or they're a complete genius at quantum computing. And that's the sort of thing you can do with content addressable stores, and it provides a guarantee of identicalness that is very hard to break.
I'm seeing Roger Hill has his hand up.
This is sort of a naive comment maybe, but I found all this discussion of hash very interesting. It's sort of like doing a file compare almost, in cases, except when the sun doesn't rise or something. But anyway, I wonder if fonts could be, for secure applications, fonts could be labeled with the hash in their name. It'd be kind of cumbersome, but if you wanted a font with a particular name, but also a particular hash, and that would avoid the problem of having two fonts from different sources or from different times, something like that, of being slightly different.
Roger, you've precisely said what Git does. This is exactly what Git does. When you say, I want this font and this font and this font, you, so to speak, on your disk, you say, I want this font and this font and this font. And Git makes sure it's got a copy of those fonts. But what it stores is, I want this secure hash, that secure hash, the other secure hash. So if you look at an ordinary computer directory, it consists of references to where the files are. The address is a location on disk, and the disk, the data on the disk can be changed. Whereas when you look at a Git directory, you have a name, which is the human key, and the value is the secure hash. It's not a location on a disk. It's the location where the data is stored, but it's not the location on disk. It's stored at that secure hash. And
so the hash is sort of used as an address.
Yeah, the hash is used as an address. And if you ask it for the file, for the data at some particular hash, it will look into its store to see if it has that particular hash. And if it's got it, it will give you that without knowing whether or not it's what you wanted. You said, I wanted hash such and such and such, because that's what I've been told to ask for. It will give you something with hash something, 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 or it won't give you anything at all. But it won't know in the way that I know things, that it's the thing you asked for. It's just something that happens to have the same hash. And it's the computer is trusting that there hasn't been a hash collision.
Saying I want computer modern 10, something is not good enough. Might say I want computer modern 10 with the following hash, and then that would pin it down.
That would do it. But instead of doing that, and instead of giving a hash for everything you want to know, you say, my tree, my whole tree has this as its hash.
Oh,
and then
yeah.
I want, from that root, I want fonts Knuth CMR10. And the tree will allow, knowing the root of the tree and the path, the human path from that root, will allow Git to say, he's asking for this secure hash. So I'll find it for him. So Git will translate your request into a secure hash by following the path, but you don't have to specify the secure hash for everything. You only have to specify the secure hash for the root of the tree. And you can, of course, combine multiple trees into one tree. That's directories and subdirectories and so forth. So in some sense, you take your whole file system and there's a hash for it.
Also, there was some talk about having updates to fonts or updates to programs. This has probably already been thought of, but having a hash database where you put in a hash and it will give some hashes that are updates to the files that are updates to the one that you put in. That would be one way to keep track of updates, or maybe avoiding updates if you don't want an update.
Yeah, and that's what Git does. I mean, Git stores a copy of everything that you commit to it. Everything you commit to Git, it keeps a copy of it, but it does it with as little copying as it can manage. And so if you change one file, very little. If you change one line in one file, it adds very little to Git storage. It just stores all the pointers it needs, and it follows the pointers very simply, very efficiently and very reliably, because computers are good at that sort of thing. Whereas we're very good at remembering names and concepts, which concepts in particular computers are very poor at. So Git is using that sort of software to make everything work straightforwardly. The Git came about in around 2002 or something like that. And it came about because the Linux development was using a version control system, a distributed peer-to-peer version control system based on a content addressable store called, I think, BitKeeper. And BitKeeper stopped being free for open source projects. It's still a very good version control system, but it stopped being free for open source projects. And that was enough to persuade Linus Torvalds to create the Git version control system, which is a file system. It's built upon a file system. For what it's worth, Torvalds said that he only did 2 good pieces of software, and he named them both after himself. The one was Linux, and the other was Git, which is English slang for an oath.
What does Git stand for?
I don't know. It stands for anything except I don't know why Git is called Git.
What is GIT? Is it?
Yeah, GIT.
I mean, I think it really does refer to the slang term. It's not an acronym or anything.
Oh.
As Linus himself has said.
Yeah, very interesting.